Hello and welcome to episode 273 of Page One, the Writers Podcast. I'm Marco.
And I'm Tarek.
And thanks for joining us on the podcast where we like to speak to writers of all kinds about their writing careers, find out how they got into the industry and try and get as many hints and tips from them as possible. And we've got a huge back catalogue of guests there, growing every week, surprisingly, with authors, screenwriters, comic writers, video game writers, all sorts of writers, and agents and editors as well, actually. So yeah, please do check that out if this is your first time visiting. But if it is your first time visiting, you've tuned in presumably because you want to hear from a certain Benedict Anning.
That's right. He is a fantastic debut author. His novel Atomic Coffin is out right now.
Yeah.
At time of listening, it's out. Go and buy it. It is a really cool concept. He describes it as, well, he doesn't perhaps, it has been described as Hunt for Red October meets Event Horizon. Yeah. So that's a kind of, claustrophobic,
it's a brilliant
tense, specky. It's a great catchline. And he talks to us about his process, how he got this first book written, what he was doing before that, how long it took him, working as a bookseller, what he learned in that job in terms of marketing, selling books, etc. So a lot of really good, interesting things around getting that first book deal that he's just managed to get.
Yeah, absolutely. And full disclosure, we know Ben off the podcast as well. He's part of the same writing community that we're in as well, and indeed I run many different RPG games for him as well. so yeah, but he's a lovely guy, brilliant writer, and really fun to chat to. So we'll get into that in a moment. Before we do, I just want to remind people we do have a Patreon where you can support us. You get all sorts of benefits like ad-free episodes, early access to episodes, bonus bits, books, even Page One notebooks, all sorts of things. There's different tiers you can support us at. So please do check that out if you haven't already. It really does make a difference in terms of allowing us to continue making the podcast and getting these great guests on the podcast, as does Tarek giving us a rating and review. Particularly if it's a 5-star rating. That's what we're talking about.
Me. Yes. I was trying to think what I should be doing to. But yes, rating reviews, massive help.
You should be setting up a bot farm, please, to give us 5-star ratings.
A Russian bot farm is just flooding us. Yeah. And of course, if you do like another important way that you can share your appreciation for the show is to get in touch and tell us how much you enjoy listening to us. You can find us a number of different ways. You can
wait. You're going into your end of podcast episode, but I don't know why you're doing this right now.
What am I doing? It's the start of the show. I'm all over the place today. I will save that. Do you want to know how to get in touch with us? Listen to the episode and I'll tell you at the end.
I mean, we're so professional.
Okay. It's too hot today.
Right. Let's get into the episode and then Tarek will tell you how to get in touch with us.
On with the podcast.
Well, thanks for joining us today. I know you have listened to the podcast before, so you know what question is coming at the start of the podcast. Mm-hmm. Did you always want to be a writer?
No, not exactly.
Okay, bye.
Yeah, I was like, I'm inauthentic. This is posturing. No. So for me, like, art was my main thing when I was younger. That was sort of the thing that I'd, had the main passion towards and like was working on the most and sort of had been like identified by people around me as like the thing that I would do essentially.
Mm-hmm.
What sort of art? Like painting, drawing?
It was mostly drawing when I was like really young, and then eventually did some like fine art painting and stuff at sixth form and so forth. But at the same time, like it was like I would still like incorporate like writing and stuff into what I was doing essentially a lot of the time. So I do actually have here, and I will not show them because they are like bad.
Oh, come on, you can't see that and then not show it.
Well, exactly. Okay, so. I'm guessing I was probably 8, 9 or so, maybe when I did these.
Early here for this.
Well, it's not how bad they are or how ridiculous they are. It's more that they're related to Harry Potter. Is the main trouble here essentially. But I've got these little things that I made. The typical. So for listeners only.
Nice.
this is a bunch of A4 paper stapled together and made into little books that I've done like little covers for.
That's really cool.
And they say Wizard and Witch World of Harry Potter and the Attack of the Spiders, because they didn't do anything about spiders. So, you know,
it's wide open.
And the following one was and the Immortal Werewolf, because they didn't do anything about werewolves.
I mean, hang on. But you started off by saying you didn't want to be a writer, and you've clearly written these books from scratch and made covers and everything for them.
Well, I think this is the thing: is that, you know, I have this vague memory, which is the response that I have in the memory is like there's like two different responses. You know, when a memory is so old that like you sort of get confused about. You've told it so many times that you're not sure which one it is. If you see what I mean. Mm-hmm. So I remember when I did one of those, and, you know, we shared around it in class and everyone really liked it and stuff. And the teacher was like, "So Ben, do you want to be a writer?" And there are either two responses that I said to this. I can't remember which one it was, but it was either, no one becomes a writer. You know, it was very much that, you know, typical sort of British, nothing ever happens mentality. And the other response, but something that I definitely said often during that time was, "I'm not a writer. I'm a creator. I do creative." Wow. And I was like, "What a twatty thing to say to this sweet, you know, supportive primary school teacher who's just like, oh, what do you want to do?" And I'm like, rephrase the question, please. You know. So yeah, I mean, everything I like. During like childhood and stuff in general, it was all, as I say, mostly geared towards art stuff, but it was also incorporating all the different sort of aspects of creation that I could do. Like, you know, I also did like this big, like, not A4 but like A1 like stapled together book of like this alien race that I'd made and stuff, and all their like history and culture and all these things and all that sort of stuff. Cool. And, you know, I would always, any game that I would play, I would want the customizable options. That's all I cared about half the time was, you know, can I make my own character? Can I make my own stories and stuff? Can I make my own worlds and all that sort of stuff? So that was sort of the main sort of driving focus for me when I was younger. And as I say, you know, art was the main thing for a while. And I think for a few years until I was about 16, 17, the main thing that I was sort of working towards was going to be either like a concept artist for a game studio was like my main sort of thing that I was going to do. And, you know, during that time I was, you know, making like Skyrim mods and stuff and all that sort of stuff. And yeah, but like around that age, like I think everyone gets a bit weird around like sixth form, or like, you know, when you're thinking about what you're going to go to uni to do, or if you want to do it in the first place, or, you know, where you're going with everything essentially. And for me, you know, that time was also, you know, I was getting into meditation. I was smoking a lot of weed. I was, you know, I was listening to Terence McKenna lectures. I was like, you know, nothing's real, man. You know, I mean, this is all, I'm on a path. I've been shoved onto this path, even though, you know, it's something that I enjoy. I quite like doing art. But I was like, no, I gotta do my little radical act of free will to sort of break the pattern. But around that as well, I got much more into reading after I got back into Game of Thrones. Essentially, I was really sick one day when I was like 15 or so, and started to just binge all the series, and then got back into the books, and then discovered that, hey, books can be pretty cool. So I, you know, really got back into reading for the first time in a while, because I wasn't a huge reader when I was younger. There was only one series that I was really passionate about, but and coming back to it, you know, I then sort of again in this weird period where I was just like, you know, I also learned like the term introvert for the first time, which, like, you know, I think as someone who had like a sort of a different period between like spending a lot of time out, like going outside to make sure I was like hanging out with friends and stuff, and like, you know, being very social and sort of force myself into this circumstance a lot of the time and really enjoying it a lot of the time, but also just being depleted of energy.
Yeah.
And not understanding what that was. And then, you know, spending like weeks then instead, like on Xbox Live with my friends and stuff instead, where, you know, it's the shifting pattern between the two sort of things. But when I sort of, you know, learned the term, I was like, oh, it's okay. Well, I can actually, you know, if the things that I enjoy doing when I'm on my own and I'm actually really quite good at, that's fine. I can, you know, and then I think around that time, as I say, just sort of just trying to do something other than what I was doing in some weird act of just I don't know, just sort of being like, nah, I'm not keen on doing the path of everything. So yeah, I just kept changing my mind as to what I was actually going to do, and then dropped out of uni and dropped out of sixth form rather, which was the last legal year you could do that. And that was just mostly because also my friend had done it, and we were going.
Hang on. Are you not allowed to leave school? What do you mean last legal year you able to do that? You don't have to leave school, but you have to finish S6 now.
Yeah. You have to finish sixth form now, as far as I'm aware, or at least there was.
Right? Is that in England?
It might be just England. It might be different there, or like England or Wales or something. But the following year, it had been like, you know, you have to provide all whatever or something. And I did provide a really fucking cringe letter saying about how I'm going to read philosophy and I'm going to create art and I'm going to make music with my friends, and if I end up homeless, so be it. Which is not really how that works, really. That's not the then I spent like a year of like doing quite a lot of good art. I made a really lovely website. I did like graphic design at sixth form, did really well at that naturally as well. And then, you know, the money ran out, and then I had to get a job, and then I had to work as a lifeguard, which is the most boring job a person could suffer, really, because you have to pay attention, but nothing's going on. So yeah, that was my life for a few months, and then I sort of decided I should go to uni, because then, you know, I could get like a job that's less terrible. And also, to be honest, and this was the big motivating factor, I was like, well, it's 3 years where I don't actually have to work if I get a maintenance grant, so, you know, I can use that time to keep writing. So that was the sort of motivation behind that. And then I realized that the work that had to go into getting there was actually a lot more difficult than it was intended, because I was going to go on a sort of an access course that was going to take me right onto uni, but actually that's for like older people and so forth. You have to do your actual sixth form A levels and so forth. So I did 3 full A levels, which usually, you know, takes place over 2 years, in about 6 months by myself, like online stuff, where that was basically just my life for that period of time. To be honest, it was just very diligently working on all that stuff and also trying to write in the meantime, essentially. And then got to uni, finished my first book, which of course was literally just Skyrim, with a Marcus Aurelius stand-in in it, because, you know, got to get that you know, late teen cringe into there as well, just, you know, trying to believe that you've solved the universe and that you're a very intelligent stoic individual. So yeah. And then book 2 was, you know, well, and also I did query agents and stuff with this. You know, I was like 20 and the queries were awful, and obviously I was saying about how, you know, unique it is, this Skyrim Game of Thrones book. But
did
you know,
hear back from any of them?
I think I did. I think I heard back from, like, I don't know, 2 or 3 that was just like an automated sort of response. I think this is the thing as well, is that this was probably this was just about the start of when ghosting sort of became probably quite normal, I imagine. So this would have been like, what, 2017 or so, I think. Yeah, and yeah, I heard back from a few of them, and but mostly it was just silence and stuff, and just being like, oh, okay, so I'm not gonna become like a prodigy at age 20, and I'll do it again then. And then I decided I would do something a bit more elaborate, and this was, you know, I was studying ancient history as well, So I sort of wanted to do something that was sort of inspired by that as well. And I ended up writing a 180,000 words fantasy that was based on like a fantastical version of the Phoenician culture, which no one's gonna know what a Phoenician culture is anyway. To begin with, like there's gonna be like 3 people listening to this who are like, "Oh, sick Phoenicians, they're brilliant." But everyone else,
another
is just gonna be
100
like,
that thought you said Venetian there.
exactly.
So
Well, that's the thing, yeah. So, and it was that, and then with some sort of weird sort of cosmic horror stuff, and again weird existentialism about stuff, because that was just the sort of stuff that I was reading was a lot of existentialist classics and stuff as well. And naturally that didn't get a great response either from agents. And then I finished up uni. I started working as a bookseller at Waterstones and started writing book 3, which was just going to be a horror set in that same world essentially, which again, it's not marketable, man. That's not a smart move.
Well, but just touching on what you're saying there, I think when a lot of people are starting out writing, they don't really, well, they both have that delusion that you said there, where you're like, someone's got to buy this. I'm going to be rich. This is going to be the greatest book in the world, but also you don't. I think a lot of people don't really think, is this book sellable? Can this find a place on the shelf somewhere?
Yeah.
And it isn't important. If you want to be a commercial, if you want to write a story, that's fine. But if you want to be a commercial author, then you do have to put at least a bit of thought into that side.
Yeah, I think on that point as well, I think it's quite simple that people, especially me during that period of time, it was writing stuff that I was, all my very esoteric interests that I specifically was interested in. And also I was very interested in doing something that was original. That was a key point in my mind, that I wanted to do something very, very original, but the thing that I wasn't thinking about is, what does a reader want, and how do I approach fiction, and how do I find books and movies and TV shows that I'm actually interested in? You don't type in on Google most interesting, unique book ever that just came out, or you don't. You say, oh, I love this trope in this thing, or oh, there's this. Is there anything else like this, but like this instead? Is there any, that's, you approach things in that way, where you go for tropes and you go for like subgenres and all that sort of stuff. And that's how people approach fiction and media in general. I think
Did working in a bookshop help you sort of hone that instinct? Yeah,
I think so. I think one of the things that I did learn when I was working at Waterstones is that, one, I was selling books that I'd never read. That's like half the job, to be honest. I mean, pulling back the curtain there for a little bit, but when you go into Waterstones and maybe half the time someone says, oh yeah, no, that one's great, it's actually it's really evocative, it really goes for the sort of contemporary issues in terms of all this sort of stuff. They're usually just like thinking, oh well, this is actually a book of the month which I need to sell. It's going to look good on my KPI. That is the only KPI that I have, essentially. Or all that sort of stuff. Occasionally you can really give your own interests and so forth, but for the most part, you are also trying to just convey things in a clear, succinct way, which is one of the important things that which you learn from it, and I found really quite useful in terms of understanding how books are sold, how the ideas are sold, essentially.
I mean, we've been wanting to try and get a bookseller on for a while to kind of talk about this part of the writing world, which is like, for most people, that I guess their way into a book. That's where most people will see a book, will be sold a book, etc. And I'm interested about the decisions that go into a bookshop in terms of where a book is placed on a shelf, physically on a shelf, how it's marketed, what comp titles may be underneath it. So what kind of stuff happened when you were working there in terms of, did you have any control over where a book went, or what it was compared to, or how it was displayed or anything?
I mean, in terms of how it's displayed, one of the things that you'll see a lot in bookshops are what we call shelf talkers, which are those little notes where you have the handwritten notes from the bookseller. I mean, sometimes those will include like media quotes and stuff like that. But more often than not, it's quite encouraged for booksellers to basically pick up books that they're interested in or ones that are already face out and so forth, and just try and like put their own interests and stuff in there. So you will sometimes have someone saying, this is the best book that I've ever read. It combines these brilliant ideas and so forth. And most of the time that will be genuine. And that is, the booksellers trying to bring attention to these things, because there's a little bit less control in terms of sort of like table placement and stuff. And like, the numbers that you get in for given things. I think the sort of the agency that different bookshops have changes depending on regions and like regional managers and so forth. Some are a little bit more strict on these things. There are also like, I can't remember what the specific term for it is, but there is basically like sitemap things of saying this is where everything should be in this shop, which is within sort of this bracket. Essentially, like this shop sells these number of books, this is about this size, it should look around like this essentially. Right, so there's a lot of that sort of stuff. Like you can definitely like push for more an individual book to be included a bit more. Like one of the things that when I was at Livingston Waterstones, I think one of the first things that I sort of pushed for was I wanted Stephen Graham Jones' The Only Good Indians in, because we had like one copy in, and I was like, oh, that if we can get some more of that, that'll be brilliant, because we want a bit more in that horror section essentially. And we got a few more of those. I mean, that's like 6 more just that you can put on a table essentially. So there's definitely what goes on to a smaller genre table and stuff. That's definitely something that individual booksellers will have some sort of say over. But in terms of like front of house, all the big ones, with new hardbacks and buy one get one half price, there's a little bit less there. I mean, a bookseller can just decide, okay, that one I want this one on buy one get one half price because there's a space there, because we've just gotten rid of all of those and there's going to be 2 days until the next stock comes in, so I'll just put those there. There's a lot of that sort of like on the fly stuff, but there is a certain degree of what is expected for a given shop of a given size to have on the front list essentially, if that makes sense.
So I mean, you're working in the bookshop, you're starting to hone these instincts. So I mean, is that when you turned your mind to Atomic Coffin, or was there something in between?
A little bit
fantasy.
A little bit in between. So that third book was so that was the first one that I had got any proper feedback on, to be honest, as well. I got it from another bookseller that I worked with in the first shop down in Walton-on-Thames. And then I think Marco, you I believe read the first like 3 chapters as well. We did like a swap when I first came up to Edinburgh, and we met through Edinburgh SFF Writers Group. And you'll have noticed that it was a bit of a slow start. It's a bit of it's definitely not straight into the action. And I also got some feedback from the wonderful Dave Goodman, who has confessed that he had a bad day when he gave that feedback.
What did Dave say?
Well, he was basically saying, "Oh, this you don't want to start here. You want to start there." And said, "This is all pointless and all." No, it wasn't all like
what an arsehole. Like Dave Goodman.
No, it really wasn't. It really wasn't like horrible, but it was. It was quite cutting, I suppose.
Okay.
And as I say, he's confessed that he was saying, oh yeah, I was, I had quite a bad day actually that day, and I was really happy that you took it in the right way and whatever. But one of the things that he did say about that is that in sort of like the notes afterwards or whatever was like was that the prose itself is good, it's often quite the case that when you're going through these like first 3 chapter things that you come from like people in these sorts of communities and groups, sometimes the prose is just pretty rough. Like the actual writing itself is just a bit clunky to get through, but the prose here really quite solid. I think there's easily potential here. I think you just sort of need to figure out what you're doing with this, that, and the other. So I fixed the book up a bit, and then I also had a one-to-one with an agent who, well, it was a very positive one, and then he ghosted me, which is normal. It's normal. He did then later become my agent, so we'll come back to that in a second. But yeah, that was. But I knew after a while where that got with querying and so forth was that it was pretty dead from the get-go. There are a lot of sort of decisions there that were just it's not easy to explain, it's not easy to sell. And again, it comes back to that sort of idea of having, when you're selling a book in like a bookshop or whatever, or online, or you're just recommending things to people, the easiest way is that if you can have a really easily communicable idea. Really, it doesn't have, like, it can be high concept or whatever, but if you can just communicate the idea clearly, then that puts you on a really great steading to begin with. So I took a break from writing for quite a few months actually, after getting like lots of rejections on short stories as well, which I was trying to do at the same time. And I think again I was sort of just in that sort of situation in life where it was like I was still on like minimum wage. I was like I was putting so much effort into trying to do the writing stuff, and it didn't feel like it was actually paying off in any regard. So I just sort of took a big break from it. I was just like, no, I'm done. I'm gonna, I might come back to it eventually, but for now, I'm gonna be, just listening to Elder Scrolls podcasts, listening to all that pointless lore, and just like, just going back into my steady zone or whatever. And then eventually, I wrote a short story for a medieval horror anthology, and that was the first thing that actually sold. It was a very easy one for me as well, because I sort of I saw the sort of the criteria for it, and I was like, oh, I mean, that's basically that's just my bread and butter, really, because I studied ancient medieval history. Horror has always been an interest of mine, and I just loved the idea of that. And yeah, so that sold to that anthology, and that was like a great like sort of just ego boost, and also being like, hey, there's a bit of actual validation after 7-8 years of really plucking away at this and not actually getting any real feedback that's properly positive. And following that, I was just sort of thinking about that I would potentially follow down sort of the historical horror route and just sort of keep that as a common thread. And then I was just sort of thinking of different environments and stuff that would be good for that, and also thinking about isolated environments, because I loved like stuff like Alien or All the White Spaces or all that sort of stuff, which is really in a contained area and just builds on isolation. And then I just thought of a submarine, and I was like, okay, that could potentially be a short story. I might give that a go. There was also another call for submissions for a similar anthology that was like one of the world wars, and I was like, I could potentially do that. And when I was down in London for a job interview, I picked up this book, which is Under Pressure by Richard Humphreys, which is a memoir of someone's time in a submarine during the Cold War. And basically a few pages in, while I was reading that on the way on the train back home, I was like, yeah, there's like legs for like an actual book in here. This could be like not just a short story. There's a lot of weird stuff going on in submarines. So and then
no, so I was going to say, I mean, all this sounds like it's leading to your first book, Atomic Coffin. Is that, am I jumping the gun by saying that?
That's right. That's correct. Yes.
Well, I mean, why don't you tell us what the book is about?
I can do that. I can give that a go, I suppose. I don't have this on a second screen here showing the synopsis. But no, I can do this. So, Atomic Coffin is, in 3 words, about a haunted Soviet submarine. Again, easily communicable, pitchable
Mhm.
idea. You know
Yeah.
what that is? Anyone ask you the Haunted Submarine book? It's probably this one. So it's 1984. It follows a British spy who's been living in East Berlin, basically undercover for almost a decade, and gets hold of a Soviet intelligence leak, which details a submarine that's been sitting in the Geo-UK gap between Iceland, Greenland, and the UK, and has been there for 3 years, sending out updates during that time, has not moved, which is basically impossible. And its most recent message says that it's active. And all the information about it, like all the specifications, have been redacted. It's all this vague mystery thing, even on the Soviet side, essentially. So this basically prompts our protagonist Heidi to join a Royal Navy submarine to basically go investigate the vessel and basically neutralize the threat. By the time that they get there, they find it's abandoned, and there are weird things in the space and weird things going on and weird things with her memory, and the way the story is told is a bit strange, and then it sort of unravels in a rather nasty, creepy, nonsense horror way, basically.
That is a very cool setup. I love the sound of that book, man.
Thank you. I've got lots of copies if you want. I do need to get rid of those.
It's been described as Red October meets Event Horizon, which again is a brilliant like sentence to pitch a story.
Totally,
I would say.
Yeah.
So I mean, you've alluded to the fact that one of your you talked earlier about like your earlier books were like exploring your esoteric interests and all of this sort of stuff. But what seems to still have come through in Atomic Coffin, even if it is that more saleable idea, is your love of horror, and particularly sort of cosmic horror and stuff like that.
Yeah. It was one of those ones where I don't know why it took me so long to just decide on just a straight horror. Like everything that I'd been writing had been sort of dancing around it and incorporating it a little bit. And, my first love in terms of books was another one here, which is Lord Lost by Darren Shan, which is...
Darren Shan.
Darren
Vampire's
Shan.
Assistant.
Oh, yes.
Loved those books when I was a kid.
I've got a little letter here from him after I sent him a little letter. It's
No
very
way.
nice. Yeah.
Ah.
I sent him a lovely little letter to basically say that, he was my entry point into horror. And, I read these books when I was, I don't know, again, like 8 or so, probably. And, in the first few pages, it's gore everywhere, and his parents get ripped to shreds, and there are demons with mouths in their hands and stuff, and it's all just it's
nice.
brilliant. It's just a lot of fun. So that was literally my gateway into horror, and I think one of the first sort of, I guess, like cultural identities I assigned myself, I guess, was like, oh, I'm a fan of horror. That's what that is. I really like that. I'm a horror fan. And that sort of then bled into me being like a cringy emo during my teenage years, I guess. So, which I still am, I guess. Never goes away. So,
I mean, let's chat about horror then, because horror is obviously, well, everyone keeps saying it's having a moment at the moment. Horror is this big thing, and Atomic Coffin is cosmic horror. I understand, and I wonder if you could explain what your view is on what makes horror cosmic. Where does the cosmic part come from?
I think I wonder how much of it is just that we don't want to say Lovecraftian anymore. To be honest, I think also it's expanded outside of that in a sense as well. But I think it feels like maybe like 10, 15 years ago we would have said Lovecraftian a lot more, and then these days we sort of say cosmic just because it incorporates a lot more that has come out of it, I guess. But yeah, sort of what I think of as cosmic horror is just stuff that usually blends with science fiction and weird fiction, and usually deals with stuff that is unexplainable, or deals with fractures in sort of reality and sort of our understanding of our either our own mind or our place in the universe or stuff like that. So I think how I described Atomic Coffin a couple times as well is like it's like psycho-cosmic horror. So it deals with that a little bit more of just like, it feels less about sort of this giant sort of malignant entity of like, taking over the universe or something, so much as it is about, again, sort of fractured realities and fractured sense of self and all that sort of stuff. So that's, I think, how I would place it, I guess.
It's more like internalized horror stuff as opposed to the bit of bigger. Yeah, cool.
Yeah,
that's cool.
And when you were writing Atomic Coffin, is this like, are you, we'll ask the inevitable question, are you a planner or a pantser when you write?
Interestingly, actually, my first 3 books were very much planned. I would sort of give myself some leeway, but they were very much, I wanted a sort of a structure of how things would go. Atomic Coffin was the first one that I was pretty almost entirely pantsing it. I had an idea of a couple things that I wanted to do, sort of one twist, and then sort of a few ideas that would come up, but otherwise it was really just chapter by chapter, and then thinking ahead by maybe a couple chapters of ideas that I wanted to come into. But I think one of the things, again, is that it's one of those books where, because it's set in a submarine, there's only so many places you can go. There are only so many turns you can take, essentially. So it was quite natural as it went along that way, because you literally just force someone into a scenario, and then there's there's literally 2 submarines that are involved, and it's almost entirely on there. So you can sort of work in that way a little bit more. And again, it's a single point of view, so it felt like it lent itself to that a little bit more. But I think one of the things as well, when I can think back on like my process there, was, as well as just sort of taking it chapter by chapter or whatever, it was also just trying to be, each chapter is interesting in itself. Each chapter is, I'm not filling out a planning sheet to be like, oh, I want to get to this point, so this has to do this, and then this has to do this, or whatever. Because I think a lot of writers will find, especially in their early work, or especially if they're doing fantasy, which I think fantasy feels like a trap in a lot of senses, is that they will do things to be like, oh, but there's this boring thing that I had to do to set up this thing. I was like, we shouldn't really be approaching it that way, really. I mean, if you can just focus on, like, again, chapter by chapter, just being interesting in itself, please do. I mean, it definitely helped for me to do that. But I think, again, when you're dealing with stuff like fantasy, you're sort of setting stages, and you're sort of thinking about, there is so much. When I talk about the idea of a trap, I think it comes into the idea of world building and all that sort of stuff, which is fun, and I love doing that world building stuff. I've made so many maps, and I created like icons and like flags and all that sort of stuff. But that's not writing. That's not the words on the page. That's not the experience that the reader takes away. I felt like it was, Atomic Coffin was a big jump into just sort of a different type of writing, really, and just trying to be intentionally writing for an audience, to try and be engaging on the page as it goes along, and also, as I say, just intentionally incorporating a lot of tropes that I enjoyed. Like, one of the things was that I went into it doing was just trying to not worry about being original or unoriginal, just being like, well, I like Alien, and I like as I say, all the white spaces and the Terror and all that sort of stuff, or The Thing, or all these things, and just like sort of mashing them together and just being like, I like things that do this, because
I think there's a lot to be said for writing stuff that you want to read yourself, because I think if you write something that you want to read, there's going to be other folk out there who feel the same way. So I think writing something for you as opposed to for someone else is almost always the correct thing to do.
You have to balance that against what Ben was saying earlier, I think, about writing it.
Well,
picking your niche interest.
So I think there's obviously the advice that write what you know and write what you love. I think that's great if you have immediately only commercial interests, which people don't a lot of time. Like, again, it was me going, what's the most commercial sort of things that I really enjoy, and it's schlocky horror movies and stuff, and if it has the trappings of that sort of stuff, and just it goes along that sort of way, essentially, is that was or at the very least the framework that I wanted to work in.
I mean, and this whole change of approach essentially obviously paid off big style. You said earlier, you got that agent that we know who the agent is. Yeah. We know who the agent is because he's been on the podcast before, John Baker. You got that agent, and obviously then sold the book. The book is, it's already getting, I think it was a Guardian, pick of the month and all of this sort of stuff. So, it's got a great buzz around it as well. So, well, first of all, how did you get John, and also how does all of that feel? You talked earlier about validation and things like that, and this must be, a real validation when you're seeing reviews like that in the paper and things like that.
Yeah, definitely. So I got John through, I suppose, I had a referral from Erin of MK Hardy. So I got quite a few referrals from friends who had beta read the book and really enjoyed it. I think what to sort of bear in mind with this is that going into it, having a referral to an agent, you should only sort of approach that as being like, oh, it's probably a quicker answer, or I will get an answer, as opposed to no answer. Yeah, that's usually how it works out with these things. And so going into it, I sent out the query, and I was like, okay, finally, it's all sent off. Get used to waiting. Get back into that space. And then it was literally like 30 minutes later that I got a response from John saying, "Hey, just read the first 3 chapters. Can you send the full thing through? Brilliant. Cheers." Wow. That again, after having no response for the last one. So I was like, "Oh, cool, brilliant." So sent that through, and 2 days later, I got an email from him saying, "I read it all over overnight. I was just sort of getting back to all this. Can we have a call to sort of discuss some things that I was sort of thinking of or whatever?" He didn't say offer or whatever.
No, but
I think he just wanted. He said something about making sure that we'd be on the same page about something. I can't even remember what that was. I don't think anything really changed, but it was just one of those things, I guess.
Yeah. Are you an utter? Are you going to be a nightmare client?
Yeah. Yep. I suppose that's one of the things as well. Yeah. And so obviously, when I had that first like partial request, I immediately went for a run, like just sprinted up the hill and so forth. And then when the full came through, and and then we had our chat again, went for a run, just zoomed up there, because there's that adrenaline boost that you get, and yeah, Tara, you'll know the feeling when you hit those sort of milestones where there is that just very visceral sense of just a chemical change, something happening. Well, at least for me, I don't know. Maybe it's because my levels are weird because of like anxiety and stuff. Anyway, but yeah, so that was all really positive. And then when we went out on submission, it was so John's like whole strategy was that we'd try like Transworld and Raven, like the more commercial ones, and that was never in my sort of realm of consideration, really. Like I was always thought, okay, best case scenario we get like Titan or something like that, like a dedicated sort of horror imprint. Even then, it's not a given that we sell. That's whatever. Every little success is great. And then we did sell to Transworld, and then we also sold to Saga Press in the US. And it was, it's a very weird, strange sense of validation. And I think especially after having that sort of year before everything, where I was sort of getting okay then with being like, oh, if it doesn't work out, it doesn't work out. And also I'm not owed anything, and finally accepting that and being like, writing is not one of those things where it's not like work or, exercise or whatever, where it's like, the effort you put in creates a result. That's not how it works. It isn't, it is a lot of luck involved, and it is a lot of timing. And you just sort of increase the chances essentially as it goes along. So it was strange to sort of marry those things up, where I was like, okay, I'm okay now with writing not being my whole sense of personal validation, but then also getting all that, and then just being like, okay, I'm just, they sort of rub up against each other in a sort of strange way, I think. And then so it's we've had a couple of reviews and stuff through. Obviously, the Guardian thing was a few days ago, which was very cool. It's, I think, as the whole publication process sort of bleeds out anyway, it's sort of you have all those little blips of really exciting things. Like I heard the sample of the audiobook, which is just so incredible, and it's like cool. It's just it feels so transformational to actually just be like, oh, so that's what that word means, that's what I meant by that. It's not just like things that I typed, and all that sort of stuff. And the whole process of whenever the covers and stuff come through, there are all these little blips of really exciting things that come along with it that make it feel more and more real.
I was going to say, it's sort of this thing that was in your head is now becoming real. It's now becoming coming into the world. So and it's all very cool, and it's all very exciting, and there are other exciting things happen which I cannot talk about, but there it's all very ridiculous, where it sort of gets to a point where you're just like, okay. I'm simultaneously sort of out of breath and very excited and very happy. It's as I say to everyone, it is the best problem to have, is to feel overwhelmed and that everything is intense, and you feel sort of out of breath and rushing towards writing book 2 and all these things while everything's happening. But I'm just happy. I'm just happy to be here, man. I mean, and as this episode goes out, the day this episode goes out will be the day of your launch in Edinburgh. So I mean,
fancy.
Are you looking forward to that as well? To actually, that's when you are presenting it to the public, I guess. For the first time. So, I know you were at Chimera and stuff like that.
Yeah,
but,
so
this
that's
is its official one.
Yeah, I was going to say, it's like I was quite fortunate that we had Chimera beforehand. That was sort of it's simultaneously sort of a test run up to this, but it was also a much larger audience as well. So because it was in the theatre at Chimera, so so that sort of actually relieved a little bit of the stress. Where I'm like, oh, okay, I can do this. This is fine. So very much looking forward to that, and it's going to be really lovely because one of the big reasons why I got to this stage is because of the writing community here and the support that I've got there, and learning about the industry, and also getting the feedback and all those amazing beta readers of really talented writers, and just having, as I say, everything involved with that community has been so essential to the book getting to this point and me getting published in the first place. So it's going to be really nice to just sort of be on the other side of these events, because I've been to, all three of us have been to a million different launches and stuff, and it feels just quite natural to sort of flip the other side, but it's also just like, it's cool. So that'll be my day, and then that'll be cool.
I mean, I guess it is nice as well that it will be a lot of these people from the writing community. So you'll know a large portion of the people there, I guess, which makes it easier
I will know everyone there. Let me be clear. It is a debut book launch, and I'm not like some six-figure YA person with a massive like parasocial community. It's gonna be like a lot of people from my workplace, all like 20 people from the writing group, and then my dad and my brother and his girlfriend and my agent, and that's and then a couple other friends, and that's what that is as well. I think I worry about sort of certain like authors who aren't aware of what these things look like, who sort of go into these things and think, oh, will anyone turn up? If you don't invite anyone, they won't. That's but they won't. I mean, that's just, people are not interested in hearing about some, especially if it's a debut where they just don't know the author and the book has only just come out, so they haven't read it, so they don't have any questions. So why would people don't do that, really? I mean, maybe like 2 people will turn up who will do that, maybe. But no, that's not how that works. Anyway, that was a tangent.
With the buzz around it, they'll be having.
It's going to be out the door, man.
Exactly. Exactly.
I mean, I wanted to ask about you'd written these fantasy books, and you tried to sell some stuff before, and you hadn't really got anywhere, and then you wrote Atomic Coffin, and it does feel like a different book from what you were writing previously. It feels like a very specific, targeted book that you felt more confident, from the sound of it, of know what you were wanting to write and the kind of market you're going to go for. And I wondered, when you got to the end of writing this book and you putting out on submission, etc. with it. Did you feel differently about this book at the end of it than you had about your previous books? Like, did you write this book and think, I feel like this has got a chance, where I didn't feel that before or something?
Yeah. When I sent it out to the beta readers, because it had gone through various different passes, because I'm very much an underwriter, and then I go through various passes to sort of add detail and create more stuff and whatever. But by the time I sent it out to beta readers, I had no idea. I didn't think it was terrible. I didn't think it was brilliant. I just had no idea, because I was just like, I've looked at this book long enough, and that this has been sort of my life for a little bit of time. And then once I got the feedback from them, and really, really lovely, really positive feedback, I was like, oh, cool, okay, nice. I mean, cool. This might be the one then. But I don't know. I feel like this is one of those things where I kind of feel like, had I somehow, in a weird turn of events, sold like book 2 or book 3, I would be creating a narrative and a story around why that sold.
No, absolutely. Yeah.
And I know, again, with this, it's I got the right agent for it, who was passionate about this and wanted something like this, essentially. And then we went out on like submission. It was we hit things at the right time, essentially. So you'll quite recently, Transworld had announced that they are doing their horror imprint now, which is like a big thing they're pushing, and they want to be acquiring more of that. Saga Press over in the US, who took on our book over there, they had very recently like tripled their list, essentially. Like they'd just gone through like a growth, and this had sort of, I feel like, just slipped in at the right time for that sort of stuff. So yeah, it's I like, I can, as I say, it feels like sort of the truth or the story of like why it worked is so malleable depending on these things, isn't it? I just it feels weird to sort of give ultimatums and truths about like what it is, when really it could have been different in a different scenario, I guess.
That makes sense. Yeah, you're right. You will always see a reason why it was successful if it's successful.
I guess that's right.
So I mean, Atomic Coffin, it seems silly to ask this, but Atomic Coffin is out. Was it out yesterday when this episode goes out?
It would have been out yesterday.
But what are you working on next, or what can you tell us that you're working on next?
Anyway? So this is my fucking nightmare book that's been like bane of my existence, which I'm very excited about. So book 2. So I've contracted for 2 books with my UK and US publisher, and this one is the title might change, but currently it's called Deadbeats, and it is about a 1999 end of the millennium alternative music festival, and drugs and horror within the drugs, and what is in the drugs, and occult stuff and weird conspiracies, and that's it. As I say, it is not quite as picturable as Haunted Soviet Submarine, but eventually I might be able to get it down to like 5 words. That would be good. It's a little bit more. It's a little bit weirder, and it's got 2 points of view. But I think that actually the pace is a little bit quicker to kick things off. I'm excited about it. It's been very challenging, especially during everything that's going on here. And it's been its own challenge, but I'm excited. It's going to be great. It's going to be fabulous. Don't you worry, guys.
It will be. No, it does. It sounds great. You've spoken to me about it before. It does sound like a great story. So yeah.
Thanks, Marco.
So those were the main questions that we had for you. But as you know, we end every podcast by asking our guests the same questions. The first of which is, what was the last book that you read?
Right. Yes. So I finally got around to finishing this Fever House by Keith Rawson. So I started it ages ago, and then dropped it while I had to beta read another book, and then I finally came back to it, and it's bloody good. It's one of those books where it is pretty long. I mean, what is it? 500 odd pages. But but it is just so, it clips along, and the actual writing itself is really engaging. It's so nice to have one of those ones where you, on the page itself, you're just having a good time as it goes along. It doesn't matter. You feel like the person who is guiding you along the journey is trustworthy, if that makes sense. I don't know. It's just very well written, and I can see him doing like any other genre, to be honest. I know he wants to do like crime and stuff. Like, he's actually not really bound to this. It feels like he's just a straight up good writer.
Yeah.
Nice. Awesome. What about the last film that you watched?
I watched Obsession. Topical. Yeah, I watched that like 2 nights ago. I went to go see it in the cinema.
I thought it was fantastic.
It was really good. Yeah. I was surprised. I sort of went into it thinking, there's a lot of hype around this. So, but no, I thought it was really, really great. As with almost every movie, I feel like it didn't need to be quite as long, but the actual scenes and the direction and it felt incredibly well made, given it being like a directorial debut and stuff. It was, I had a really great time with it.
Nice.
Excellent. And what about TV? What are you watching on TV?
I have no idea. I can't remember the last, like, I feel like I dip in and out of TV shows, like old TV shows, quite a lot. But the last like series that I watched like in entirety, I think, was probably DTF St. Louis.
I've heard that's really good.
Yeah. It was only a few episodes in that I actually realized that it was the same Stephen Conrad who did I think that's his name, who did Patriot, which is an incredible TV show.
Yeah, I've heard
and so funny and so just really effective. It's just sweet and it's sad and it's actually like it hits the right notes and stuff. DTF St. Louis was good. I don't think it was quite as amazing as Patriot, but I thought it was a good time. Yeah.
Nice.
You should Widow's Bay. That's my recommendation.
Yeah.
Yes. Yeah. I definitely want to check that out. I haven't seen any like trailers or whatever. I've only heard chatter about it.
I think you'd enjoy it. Yeah.
I think you're right. It'd be right up your street, man. I think it's your perfect cup of tea. It's nice. Phenomenal.
It's the closest
best show I've seen
thing
for a
to
while.
Call of Cthulhu in the TV show that I've seen.
For listeners who don't know, again, pulling this back, Marco is our is it still GM? Is that what
keeper of arcane lore?
Keeper of arcane lore for the monthly Call of Cthulhu gang. And has been for, I don't know, 1.5, 2 years maybe. Yeah.
And you, of course, recently played in the live game at Chimera as well.
I did, which was wonderful. Yes, very well.
We'll be coming to Narrative Damage soon. Thanks. That gave me a chance to plug
cross promo.
Oh, it's seamless, guys. It's wonderful.
Tarek, you got anything you want to plug? You want to?
One of my wonderful either or questions, which I've here, which is there's no right answer to any of them, apart from the last one, which I'm hoping you will just give me the right answer this time, even if you don't really believe it. Just tell me what I want to hear.
But anyway.
That's fine. So let's go for The Hunt for Red October or Event Horizon.
I think Event Horizon, even though I actually don't think it's that great of a movie. So this is the thing. When I pitch the book, I tend to say Event Horizon, but good.
Okay.
I just feel like
what's your
tonally, it's
kind of a comedy horror doesn't quite
it just doesn't it just feels like it feeds off itself in a bad way, and it doesn't. But the overall like idea and the vibe of it, what it should be is fabulous. But I think I'd probably prefer to watch it than Hunt for Red October, just because I don't know. I'd prefer to watch something that's weird and creepy, and then I could sort of analyze it afterwards and just be like, it was pretty crap because of this actually. Whereas with Hunt for Red October, it's just a fairly well made movie.
Yeah,
there's nothing. I mean, I'd watch it, but it's nothing special.
Well, speaking of movies, TV or cinema?
Now, with this question, I will ask: do we mean I'll prefer to watch a movie at the cinema or at home on a TV?
No, it doesn't need to be a movie. It's just, what do you prefer? What is the better experience for you? Watching, something at home or in the cinema?
Where possible, cinema. I think there are a few movies which I think would have affected me differently if I hadn't seen it in a cinema. Like, one of the things that I always call back to these days is Nosferatu was bloody amazing in the cinema, and I think that experience is wicked.
Cool.
Yeah, there's something about, isn't it, just that kind of focus, not having anything else to pull your attention away, and just I get that. Night owl or early bird?
In my heart, I'm a night owl, but I do have a cat. So I want to say neither, but I'll say early bird just because she wakes me up as soon as she can, really, for breakfast.
Music or no music when you're writing?
Music, definitely. I have a bunch of different ambient playlists and stuff, and then also actual music that sometimes I'll listen to. But there is the occasional time when I don't need it, and I actually feel like I work better when that happens. But getting into that headspace is much more difficult.
Okay. And the last but most important question, physical book or ebook?
That'll be physical book. Sorry, Tarek.
No, it's okay. We'll just cut that. We'll cut that bit again. It's fine. Don't worry.
Okay.
I don't think you heard the question
Roll it back.
No, that's fine.
Take two. No, I knew that was inevitable.
Yeah.
No,
the
I'm
amount of
sorry.
physical books you held up during this call, I was like, this is not going to bode well for my final question.
Yeah.
Well, thanks for. Oh,
sorry. Yeah. No, I don't even have that many physical books these days because I'd used the library for so many years and I've moved so many times.
Okay.
I have 3 bookcases now. I used to have 1, so now they're all sort of all spread thin. I need to get more, but it's very sad. Anyway.
Well, thanks very much, Ben, for coming on. That was a lot of fun.
Thank you.
Well, thanks very much to Ben for coming on the podcast. I really enjoyed chatting with him there. And, it is always interesting to me that, we speak to a lot of writers about this idea of writing to market and all of that sort of stuff. And obviously Ben wasn't doing that, but at the same time, it is important, I think, if you want to be published, as he was saying, that you write stuff you're interested in, but also that has that likely will interest other people as well. Like if your interests are too niche and too esoteric, as he said, then that's when you can maybe struggle to be picked up by people, I think. Yeah.
I think it's that kind of push-pull, isn't it, between wanting to write something that you're excited about, that you will have the energy to spend the next 9 months to a year plus working on, and to not dread the thought of diving back into it again. So you want to have that excitement, but you also want it to be something that will sell, that people will want to read, that it will get you an agent or it will get a publisher, etc. And there's those Venn diagram circle. There is an overlap in the middle there, and it's finding that overlap that works for you. That is the key, I think, and it's easier said than done. But I think you do have to decide what kind of author you want to be, and are you wanting to be someone who writes something which is not going to be read by a lot of people, but you are, is very unique and very you and very important in that sense, or do you want to write something which is going to be mass read and commercial and or is there a bit of an overlap? But that's the kind of decision, the push pull. I think
it's a spectrum as well on that.
It is a spectrum for sure, and working out where you are comfortable sitting on that spectrum is the hard part, I think, and so I think, Ben, interesting what you said, you kind of made that conscious choice to shift into something which was a bit more commercial, a bit more easy sell, as you said at the start, Marco, that nice tagline. You can easily sum it up in that Event Horizon, Hunter Red October, MASH, but also being something which he's still excited about, so it interests him, etc. So so that's, it sounds easy when you put it down like that, isn't it? But it's it's trying to find out.
Just write something that people want to read. It's not
just write something that you're excited about and will sell millions. What's the big deal? Just do it. It's fine. Get off your arse.
Well, Ben has done that, and you can pick up Atomic Coffin now, and we'll put a link in the podcast description, so you can pick that up. Thanks very much to Ben for coming on. But next week we are moving away from the world of books and into the world of sort of theatre and TV writing.
That's right. We're chatting with the fantastic Matthew Capodicasa, who is an American playwright. He's written a number of plays. He's had plays put on in the Kennedy Centre, various other theatres across America, and he has just had his first TV show, which is Vladimir, which you may have seen on Netflix. He is the writer of Vladimir, starring Rachel Weisz, and so it's a really exciting chat. We've not actually recorded it yet. We're recording it tomorrow, so I'm really looking forward to diving into all of that with Matthew. And of course, if we don't have this episode with Matthew next week, you know it's because it was a horrible interview, went really badly, and we can't air it to anyway.
Yeah, no, I'm looking forward to speaking with Matthew as well, because he's also speaking to us for our other podcast, Narrative Damage, which is our TTRPG podcast, because Matthew is part of the Glass Cannon network podcast, which is one of the big actual play TTRPG podcasts. So he's going to talk to us about that, all of that separately on Narrative Damage as well. May come out in the same week, may not. I'm not sure yet. But so we're having a big discussion with Matthew about all things writing, all things gaming. So I'm looking forward to that chat. But in the meantime, as I said at the start, if you enjoyed today's podcast, then please do take the time to give us a rating and review, because it genuinely does make a difference. And now, the bit that you've been waiting for, you've listened to the whole podcast. And now Tarek is going to tell you how to get in touch with us.
So you've been very loyal. We were wondering, how do I get in touch? I waited for 45 an hour, however long this bloody podcast is. Well, I'm going to tell you how to get in touch, and you can do so in a number of exciting ways. 1, are you watching this on YouTube? Are you? Well, if you are, just scroll down and leave us a comment right underneath the video. Boom, that's easily done.
And give us a thumbs up.
Or a thumbs up and a subscribe, all that good stuff. And if you listen to it in a podcast, is this coming into your ear holes directly? Well, then you're going to have to get your phone out and you're going to go on your podcast of choice and you give us... Nope, that's not
That's
at all
about reviews. You can do that. He's telling you how to review.
Do that as well. Give us a 5-star on that. But you can send us an email if you want to, and you just have to send an email to podcast@rightgear.co.uk, or you can go into social media and you can search for @UKPage1 across any of the usual podcast social media services.
Apart from the bad
I have to
ones.
stop drinking when I record these outros.
I know.
This is a
I'm worried about Tarek now. While we go and work out what's going wrong, we will leave you.
I'm off our brains.
Have a good week, and we will speak to you next episode.
See you later.
Well, we hope you enjoyed that episode. If you did, be sure to hit that thumbs up button and hit the subscribe button so you never miss an episode like these ones down here.
And if you want to get in touch, you can do so by finding us on our social media platforms up here, or drop us a comment way down below there.
But otherwise, thanks for listening, and join us for the next episode.
See you later.